How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me for episode 268, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. He had the privilege of being at Ford Field Sunday night, primetime. He saw the offensive line open up massive holes. A great performance. He was in the building. What's up, cuz? What was it like being in there?
I think it's safe to say right now, at this time, I'm the Lions' good luck charm.
That's right.
I can take credit for that, right?
100%. I said that. All they waited for was the Jock to show up, have a good time, and they played a really good game. How surprised were you at that performance? Because it seemed to shock everybody. Came out of left field in that if you looked at the stat line, if you go through the sheets and you saw, if you had asked me who would have 40 minutes of time of possession, I'd say, oh, no doubt about it, it'd be New England. They're going to dominate. They're going to, run the ball with Sony Michel. Rob Gronkowski's going to go ham. Tom Brady, everyone said he's angry. But all in all, maybe we discounted a little bit the fact that Matt Patricia would know what was coming. He, obviously when you're there for that long, you have an understanding of what Josh McDaniels was going to try to do. But all in all, the Lions executed, and it was just great to see because really that first game was the worst of the Detroit Lions. This Sunday was the best of the Detroit Lions, and I'm so glad the nation got to see it. But it is disappointing to you that the narrative after the game is, well, it's September, the Patriots always tank, and they always suck in September. That's the time to beat them. They don't have all their guys. They got a bunch of injuries in Patrick Chung. Josh Gordon wasn't there. Edelman's coming back. Are you upset that the credit really hasn't been distributed properly towards the side of the Detroit Lions?
No, because, look, what were the Lions going into this game? I mean, honestly, I think if the Lions came out and laid a stinker in that first quarter, the fans were going to revolt and just be, they were ready. They were already whipped up into a tizzy, and they were ready to explode. So the fact that Detroit got the ball, was able to possess it for over 7.5 minutes, and they were able to utilize a run game that was very, very effective, I think calmed the nerves, and it really set what was going to happen into play. No, it doesn't surprise me that everybody says this about the Patriots, because it's true. New England is a totally different team come November, December than they are in September. It's just what it is. You can say that about the Lions, too. The Lions are usually a different team come November, December as well. But the Lions had a masterful game plan, and they utilized it to perfection. Being able to run the ball, keep Tom Brady in that offense on the sideline, having that run game actually just be effective was mind-blowing. When I was in the stands, I sent you a message, and I said, dude, these holes are so big. They're just wide open. And as I'm watching this unfold, I turned to my cousin who I was there with, and I was like, dude, why is Blunt in there right now? Like, I like LeGarrette Blunt being in there, but it was too much 50-50. Kerryon Johnson needed to be in there because those holes would open up so big, but Blunt's not as quick as Johnson is. So as he would get to the hole and get ready to explode through it, it would collapse on him. So he's still falling forward and getting positive yardage, so it's good. But, man, those could have been huge chunk plays if Kerryon Johnson was in there because they opened up so massive, and Johnson's such a quick back that he can get through there and then get into that next level. And once he's into that next level, that's when he's really dangerous. I mean, that guy's averaging, I think, what is it, the stats, 3.1 yards after contact, which is awesome, dude. I mean, for a rookie running back, that's great. So watching that game unfold, watching the game plan that they utilized, I was impressed. I think the nation should be impressed, but Tom Brady is so good after a defeat. After losing a game, I think he's 17-1 or 17-2 after a double-digit loss. he even said, he's like, I'm pissed. I'm upset. I'm mad at what happened against Jacksonville. And he wanted to come out there and he wanted to skewer the Lions. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. I think the one thing that blew me away besides the massive holes for the running backs, it was how well that secondary covered. That secondary locked down those wide receivers, and there were so many sacks. They were all coverage sacks. And that's a credit to that secondary and a credit to those guys on the line being able to fight through those blocks. I mean, there was a moment there where I think Tom Brady had like 10 seconds on one pass. It was absolutely bonkers. And then next thing you know, Eli Harold got to him and pulled him down. But, I mean, the secondary is the strength of this defense. It's something that we've been preaching since the offseason, and it showed up in this game, and you've seen it.
So do you give the Lions more credit for playing well, or was it about the fact that the Patriots were abysmal? They didn't show up to play. They kind of waited to kind of get started, and the Lions did not give them an opportunity to get into any rhythm. I mean, what does everybody say? The best way to avoid Tom Brady beating you is keeping his ass on the other side, and that's what the Lions did. Is they utilized a game plan that was really A+, hold the ball, run the ball effectively. They were able to, with the return of T.J. Lang, they were able to, like you said, open up a bunch of holes, and Kerryon Johnson and LeGarrette Blount were able to run through it, and they kept the ball. And it was a game that was managed very well, called very well. And many people are noticing that the run plays were called differently. There was a lot of zone blocking, and there was an opportunity for, like you said, LeGarrette Blount and Kerryon Johnson to kind of get a little bit of a push and get some yards. All credit to Kerryon Johnson for earning the 101 yards. Now we can stop talking about that. The Detroit Lions came with it on both sides of the ball. But do you give more credit for the Lions, or do you say, you know what, something was up with the Patriots, they didn't play well? The fact that they had to recover after probably a really tough game against the Jags made it hard to kind of rebound and play the Detroit Lions right after that.
It's been 4 days, and I still am not 100% sure if it was the Lions just playing so well, because they did have a masterful game plan. But when I was there watching the game just unfold in front of my eyes, I was scratching my head. I was like, what's Tom Brady doing? Like, he was missing passes, missing wide open wide receivers. He would sit there and he'd throw the ball into the flats to the running backs. Running backs would drop the ball. Look, a lot of people talked about how good Jared Davis looked in this game and how he did a much better job in protection. I'm going to let you guys all know. Jared Davis was like 4 steps behind all the running backs. If the running backs could catch the damn ball, we'd be talking about a totally different story right now. Jared Davis still looks horrible in coverage. Still looks absolutely awful. But because those running backs couldn't catch a ball or hold on to it, it's a different spin on what you saw. There were times where Tom Brady would have a wide open running back, and it would either hit the running back right in the chest or he would just drop it, and then Jared Davis would come running into the picture. Like, he was so far away from what he was supposed to be doing. Then after the ball is laying on the ground, he would come into the picture. You'd be like, oh, wow, Jared Davis disrupted that. No, he didn't. He had no impact on that play. He was just a running back or Tom Brady just failing to execute. There were a lot of times where that happened. So I'm still I'm like 50-50 on Lions played really, really good, and I tip my cap to them, and I give them all the credit in the world for coming out and taking advantage of this game. I mean, they only punted one time. One time. When we were watching this game unfold, it was, man, these field goals are going to come back and bite them in the butt. Man, these field goals are going to come back and bite them in the butt. Man, how many more times can we settle for a field goal before this starts to hurt us? It never hurt. It never even really got that close. You know, you went in at halftime, and it was a 3-point lead for the Lions, which was awesome. You start the third quarter, Matt Stafford throws an interception, and right there, I think I can speak for everybody in all of the Lions fan base. When he threw that interception, we're like, here's where the game turns. Here's where the game turns. It's going down. They're just not a team who can make the second half adjustments. I think we all thought that. But the Lions didn't get rattled. They didn't get rattled. They just kept on plugging away, scored a touchdown, and it was like, all right, cool. It's go time. Let's go. And it just like, I don't know. To answer your question, I don't know. I'm still torn on all of it because the Lions played a really, really good game, and the Patriots played absolutely horrible. I don't know if I ever remember seeing the Patriots play as bad as they played. And it was just Tom Brady missing wide open guys. Just guys down the field, and he's just overthrowing them, or he's throwing to a spot where there's nobody even there. There was one pass where I looked at my cousin, and I was like, dude, who did he just throw that to? Like, there's nobody there. Who was he tossing that ball to? It was just like he was already defeated before the game even started. He was like, screw this, I'm checked out. Going to launch the ball down the field, and let's just get off the field. Let's punt this and start over. It seemed really disjointed.
So you've had an opportunity now to watch the Detroit Lions at Ford Field firsthand. Did the organization turn the page? Are they moving in the right direction now? Going on the road versus Dallas, do you think a performance like that versus New England, national TV audience, is that a springboard for future success going forward? Did it make you believe in the Detroit Lions going forward? Or are you like me, just a little bit like, hey, let's see what they do in Dallas. Let's see if they can go and execute there on the road. Does Ezekiel Elliott run all over the place? Does Dak Prescott look like an NFL quarterback now versus the Lions defense? Are you like me? Are you waiting to see what happens in Dallas this Sunday? Or do you say, can you sit here comfortably and say the Detroit Lions are on the right track?
I will say that Matt Patricia hasn't lost that locker room. That was a story that we discussed the first 2 weeks of the season. We were, I think everybody was ready to call for his head 2 weeks in. I can tell you this much. That team showed up, they played, they listened, they did what he asked them to do, and he's not lost that locker room. I think I'm in the same boat as you. I want to wait and see. Looking at this Dallas game, what's the one thing Dallas does really, really good?
Run the football.
They run the ball extremely well. They usually have a very good offensive line. They're dealing with a few injuries. What's the one thing the Lions don't do well on defense?
Cover the run.
Exactly. So this sets up perfectly for Dallas to win this game. The strength of the Lions' defense is their secondary. The weakness is their run defense and in their defensive line. I'm not sure how this is going to work out because Dallas is really, really poor with their wide receivers. They don't have a lot. I mean, Allen Hurns is your best wide receiver. Allen Hurns was like the third option in Jacksonville. What's that tell you? He's the best guy in Dallas right now. They are a team that is designed to run the ball and run the ball a lot, and they run the ball very effectively. They're a team that is set up to pass the ball and do a lot of the underneath stuff. Dink and dunk, dink and dunk, dink and dunk. They don't have a wide receiver who can really stretch the field. So it's going to be interesting to see what Matt Patricia dials up. I'm expecting a ton of nickel coverage, nickel and dime coverage. I'm expecting Diggs to be up in the box. They've got to somehow find a way to neutralize Ezekiel Elliott, put the ball in Dak Prescott's hand, and force him to make turnovers. It's going to be interesting to see how this team builds off of a very good win against New England. If they can put the pieces together, they have a shot to go into Dallas and win this game. But Dallas is a team that is built to basically destroy the Lions because what they do very, very well, the Lions struggle to stop. It's going to be an interesting matchup. I think we're going to learn a ton about this team this week when they take on Dallas.
It's going to be an epic game, 1 o'clock on the road. Pro Football Focus has been talking about and hyping up Byron Jones, the cornerback for Dallas. They've declared him one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL through 3 weeks. So how is he going to handle what Matthew Stafford and that offense brings? It'll be definitely interesting to see if the Lions can execute on defense. But yeah, you're exactly right. We didn't have this team going 2-14. Now, based on that first game, everybody kind of jumped ship a little bit and said, "Oh, this could be an awful year." We had them going 6-10, 7-9, and that's just because of the fact that, you know what? Should the team suffer any injuries? Should there be situations in which, you know, the matchups don't exactly go right? Maybe this Dallas game is one of them. I do think the Lions are right now searching for guys that are buying into the Patricia system. And something that you should take note in is that the Lions are actively bringing in guys, cutting guys, and some of the guys that they've brought in, young contributors as well, have come in and contributed. They've come in and sacked the quarterback. They've come in and made some key plays. So that's a good sign in that the working relationship between Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia right now, they are in search of guys that are going to buy into the system, and maybe one of the biggest guys is LeGarrette Blount. And you say, well, why is he out there so much? I think he provides leadership. I think he's one of the quote-unquote Patricia guys, and he's there to also mentor Theo Riddick and mentor Kerryon Johnson to say, hey, look, this is the work you got to put in the league. And similarly, sometimes people question, well, why is TJ Lang on the team? Well, one of the additions that was there that wasn't there the first couple weeks that contributed a lot was TJ Lang. And he came in, and that could be the solidifying force as to why that offense kind of kicked it into gear. And so that's why I am definitely interested to see going forward the way that some players develop going forward. But the additions of TJ Lang and LeGarrette Blount and having the new guys come in that are quote-unquote Patricia guys, I do think can help buffer that gap. But I still see this team being like a 7-9, 8-8 year. But I do think, like we said, they're going to play a lot better brand of football in the second half. I do see the defense clamping down. I do see pressure. I do see the ability. And you got to remember, they played this game for those that say, oh, it's all about New England. It's all about the fact that they had injured guys. Well, when you looked at the injury report 90 minutes prior to that contest, there was a huge name missing, and that was Ezekiel Ansah. He wasn't in the game. And the Lions seemed like they were able to have, like you said, a bunch of coverage sacks. They played a good game. So I'm interested to see, what the roster is going to look like also as well in the second half of the year as we see more and more Patricia guys. I could take a bunch of guys playing, working hard, and playing like that. But again, if this Sunday comes and you see a bunch of mistakes, you see Matt Patricia not calling timeouts properly, you see Stafford maybe taking a step back. The thing that concerned me, and I'll bring it up to you, is for the Lions to compete and win, do they have to play like that? Do they have to play supremely well across every facet of the game to get a win? Because you saw an epic performance on Sunday. Can they maybe play, and I'll ask you this, can they play a B- game, couple mistakes, couple penalties versus Dallas, and still get the victory? Or each and every game in this season, do they have to be firing on all cylinders, offense, defense, special teams, coaching? And it just kind of, the thought popped in my head, damn, if the Lions got to play like that to get a victory, I don't know if they can sustain that level of play throughout the course of a year.
I think they can play a B- game and get a win depending on the opponent. So this was the New England Patriots. This was a team that has been the modern day dynasty. There's a little bit more juice involved because it's Matt Patricia's old team. It's a team that didn't want to re-sign LeGarrette Blount. And there's like 45 guys on this roster that were former New England Patriots because every guy we go out and get is a former New England Patriot. So there's a little bit more juice in this game, and I think that's part of the reason why they played so well and they focused so hard this week in practice. But I think they can get away with playing a B- game, like you said, and come away with a W. It just is going to be against lesser teams. When you play the upper teams in the NFL, they've got to fire on all cylinders. I don't think they're talented enough yet to be able to overcome their own mistakes or shooting themselves in the foot. And on offense, we talk about it all the time. Offensively, they have a ton of pieces. They've got a lot of guys. You got a guy like Golden Tate who's awesome. You got a guy like Kenny Galladay who is looking like
emerging.
It looks like he's going to be a star. Kerryon Johnson, I'm still not 100% sure why he's not the feature back in this offense. I get it, he's a rookie and you want to bring him along slow, but he's got all the tools. He has all the equipment to be able to be that guy. You've got a guy in Matt Stafford who, whether you love him or you hate him, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that when he's on, he is on, and he is a top 10 quarterback in the league. When he's off, it's a complete mess, and it's 4 interceptions, and you're getting routed by the Jets. But when he's on, he's very, very good. When you play better teams, you need to be on. This entire team has to be on. They can't sit there and overcome doing dumb things to themselves, taking penalties, taking just botching plays. Defensively, this team is lacking. I think we both agree. The defensive line, it's just not talented enough. And it's nothing against the guys who are on that team. It's just you don't have enough impactful guys. The one thing Bob Quinn did when he came here was, I need to get more talent. I need to get more guys to add depth. And what he did by doing that, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But what he did when he did that was he just brought in a bunch of, he basically brought in rotational players, right? Like guys who aren't necessarily starters. They're guys who are going to give the starter a breath. And you have a whole team full of guys like that, which is great if you can get them all to come together and they can elevate their game. I've not seen any of these guys really elevate their game. Maybe Eli Harold this week was the one guy who really stepped up big, and that's because he had 3 big sacks in this game. But it's really hard for you to tell me that, hey, you've got an entire defense here with really no stars, nobody who is really exceptional at any one thing. Because, look, I don't care what you say about Ziggy Ansah. Ziggy Ansah is not very good. Do you know why Ziggy Ansah is not very good? Because he's never on the field.
Yeah, right.
The guy's always hurt.
Never available.
When he's playing, he usually makes an impact, but he's never there. He's never on the field. So how can I gauge what he does if he's not on the field? Darius Slay is a very good cornerback. Very good cornerback. I think here in Detroit, we maybe hype him up a little bit more because he's the best thing we got on that defense. I like Diggs. I think Diggs is very good. I like Glover Quinn. These are all guys who would be starters on other teams. I think here in Detroit, we make them out to be much bigger and much better than what they are because this defense is lacking so much. And I don't think on defense they have enough to where they can overcome silly mistakes and silly penalties. Thank God we're not taking roughing the passer penalties like Clay Matthews is, which let me just tell you this. I don't know if you've seen that play on Sunday. I've never seen a bigger crock of bullshit in my entire life.
Everyone's talking about it. It's
I was
garbage.
yelling at my TV. How are you going to hurt, like, just tangent real quick. How are you going to tell this guy not to go out there and do his job? Alex Smith had the ball. Alex Smith got sacked. Unless you want Clay Matthews to lay a pillow down and then set him on that, get the hell out of here with that mess. I mean, this man is trying to earn a living just like Alex Smith is. Alex Smith, I think, stood up and was like, really? You just threw a flag on that? What the hell are we talking about?
Big Ben on Monday said the same thing.
Yeah.
There were a couple of them. He's like, come on, guys.
Dude,
it's hurting the league, and it's going to be changed. It's got to be changed.
The league has gone way too far to one side.
The defensive players have to take a stand and say, look, we're not going to come take the field and put our bodies at risk too, because if we can't tackle, that's putting us at risk for hurting ourselves seriously, maybe getting paralyzed, because we have to tackle in a way that we've been taught. Use your hands, wrap the guy up. You can't hit high. You can't hit low. Where are you supposed to wrap your arms around a quarterback? It's going to be fixed.
And that's the thing, too. So Clay Matthews, he was a textbook tackle. Head to the side of the body, wraps him up around the waist, and just takes him to the ground. Didn't drive him to the ground. Just took him to the ground. Yet he gets flagged. Made no sense to me.
Over 25 calls in that manner have been made this year in terms of roughing the passer. That's too much.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that the league, because like I said, it has swayed so hard to one side, do you think the league is doing what they did in the preseason, where they were throwing flags all the time for the leading with the head, and then when the regular season started, you've seen it how many times? You rarely have seen it. You maybe have seen it like once every 5 games, whereas before it was once every game, every 2 games in the preseason. Do you think the league at some point is going to come back to a normal state here where, look, we told you what was going on, we were throwing the flags to send a message, and the defense gets the message, and now they adjust, and you're now the tackle that happened with Clay Matthews on Sunday, next time it happens, it's allowed, because honestly, guys, there was nothing wrong with that tackle. Absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Well, here's the thing, though. When you see now a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo go out with the ACL, the league is trying to make it so that the quarterback is on the field. And it's a money thing. Everybody knows it. When a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo is not there, how are you going to sell putting the San Francisco 49ers now a bunch more times on national TV, which is happening? Nobody's going to want to watch. So I don't think that they're going to change it a whole heck of a lot. What's going to happen is maybe not as much, but it's going to be called because the league has made a concerted effort. They've sold their soul to the quarterback, saying, look, this is the money guy. This is the guy that's getting paid a bunch of money from the organization. They're the guy that gets the ball in their hands quite a bit. So I think the league might just say, you know what? We all want you to do this, but no, we're going to double down and continue to call it at a rate maybe this year until some defenders say, hold on a minute. I think the changes will probably take place in the offseason. This year could be a bumpy ride for defenders trying to tackle a quarterback.
Going back to the Jimmy Garoppolo injury, did you see it happen?
Yeah, a non-contact injury could just run out of bounds.
So this is the thing, right? With ACLs and with ligaments that break and tear, I think it's really similar to putting tires on your car. You know, you get so much life out of the tires on your car. Most of the time, you go to Bell Tire, you go to Discount Tire, you go wherever you go, and you buy a set of tires, and you usually will buy the 50 to 60 mile radials, and you know that once you put 50, 60 miles on there, you got to change them. Every now and then, you'll try to push it to 65, maybe 68. The moment you get to like 69,000 miles on those tires, what happens? You usually blow one. I think with ligament injuries like your ACL or your MCL or even your LCL, what ends up happening is you get little micro fractures or micro tears in those ligaments, and then all of a sudden you just go one day, you go to put your foot down, or you go to cut, or you go to do some type of transitional movement with that joint, and next thing you know, it just happens at just the right angle. Those things just snap, you know, and you're trying to protect the quarterback. I get that. I think a lot of times with the ligament damage that happens on the field, it's going to happen. There's no way around you avoiding it. You just can't do it because it's taken so much for these guys to get here, right? So now that they're finally playing, they have all that wear and tear from all those years to get to this exact point. You're not going to be able to repair any of that damage that's already been done for the last, 10 years? 12 years, however long they've been playing football, and however long they've been either juking or cutting or doing whatever. I mean, ACL injuries used to only happen to wide receivers and to running backs. That was pretty much it. Maybe a defensive back now and again as well. But ACL injuries usually didn't happen to the quarterback as much as they're happening right now. Why do you think that is? Quarterbacks at this point, You run a lot of different spread option in college and in high school. So now when what that does when you get to the pros, your ligaments just have that wear and tear from having to do those the running and the cutting and the juking and all of that. It just ends up catching up to you. And I think that's what's happening, and that's what we're seeing. So the NFL going out trying to protect the quarterback, like you said, by avoiding the big hit or the low hit. I understand what they're doing, but I think sometimes you've gone way too far to one side, and you're ruining the game. You're really hurting the game.
This Sunday, Detroit Lions, Dallas Cowboys. What's your prediction? Who comes away with the W?
I really want to say the Lions. I think that they can build off of what happened. And this is a guy who has basically picked against the Lions the last 2 weeks here. And I was like everybody else who said they had no chance in hell beating the Patriots. What did I say last week? If they lose by 17, it's a win. They ended up winning by 16. I'm an idiot. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I think the Lions win this game. I think they can do enough defensively. I don't trust Dak. I think Dak is garbage. I don't think they have any wide receivers. I think defensively, Matt Stafford and this offense will be able to pick them apart, and if they can utilize the run game. Do you realize going into that game against the Patriots, they had 29 rushing attempts as a unit. As a unit. The running backs on this team as a unit had 29.
That's nice.
Coming out of the game against New England, they had 32. What does that tell you? They utilized the run game. It was effective, and you see what happens. You get a win. Utilize the run game. Be effective with it. You win this game.
It may not be as entertaining as we would all like, but you did get a chance to see that there's an opportunity for the Detroit Lions to make deep plays. Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, if you utilize some tight ends, you can be a little bit less conservative and still run your base offense. And so the base offense is not going to be super sexy, but it can work. You saw that if you run the ball, you definitely allow this offense to work their magic. And if they can hold the ball for 35 minutes, control the game, then it's going to be great for that defense. Opportunistic. Darius Slay is a super leader on that squad. You see the emergence of some of the defenders. And like you said, if you can get to Dak Prescott, you might have a chance to knock him out of the game because of the fact he might be a sitting duck. So yes, give me the Detroit Lions. I'm going to buy in. I do think that they are going to grow as a unit, and they're going to put aside all their issues. And as long as TJ Lang, some of the leaders on the team, stay healthy, then I think this team will compete. I do think that when you perform that bad on Monday night, then it does lead everybody to say, whoa, we got to step up because we got embarrassed. And everybody does not want the reaction, the anger, the vitriol. Nobody likes getting booed at their own home place. I mean, the crowd, like you said, you could sense it too, that they're just waiting kind of to pounce because we've had enough. We don't want to wait anymore. And I think that's where the fan base is at, is show me. We don't, you weren't brought here, Matt Patricia, to get us 6 wins. You're brought here to elevate and make this team better. So I'm fascinated to see what the voicemails are. We got two, one from an old friend of the podcast. Let's see what the supporters think of what's going to happen this week versus Dallas. Let's check the voicemails, and you can call us 24/7, 248-579-8686 if you want to get your voice heard worldwide. Here are the voicemails.
DSP, I was calling to say next week the Lions will beat the Cowboys, and they're going to have another 100-yard running game, and the passes will be crisp. Lions, number one.
Hey, John, it's John Spinato from the station. Long time, hope all is well. Yeah, super. Here's a simple situation, what's going on there with the Patriots and the Lions. Simple question. Have the Lions really bought into Matt Patricia's plan? Are we seeing the beginning of a perennial loser with just enough push maybe to turn into a winner? Or is this just a Patriot taking their mulligans for the week, for the year, and deciding that this is their chance to get their heads back on? What have the Lions done? Have they really turned the corner? Have things really turned around? It was a fantastic game, up and down. I mean, the commentators made it real clear. They said, without a doubt, the Lions beat the Patriots old-time style. 101 rushing yards. On top of that, intercepting Brady, harassing Brady, fighting through a little bit of adversity, playing a clean game. Tremendous discipline by the Lions all the way across the board, showing the Patriots where they had made their mistakes, and the Lions capitalized on them. It was a great game to watch. Great game to see. I really hope this could be the turning point for the Lions. You know, and he could be one of the first Belichick disciples to actually go out there and throw the Patriot way back into the NFL. It's going to be very interesting to see how the Patriots react to this, and really interesting to see how the Lions react to this.
Spin Doctor John Spinato gets in, and I think that echoes the sentiment of a lot of the supporters as well. It's like, okay, can we have one of the disciples of the Patriot way come in and have success? And I do think that everyone is kind of wondering, whoa, is this the end of the New England Patriots? Because everybody has talked about their demise for years. And so when you see a game like that, look, it's not the same team going forward, though. Guess what? In a couple weeks, Julian Edelman, Patrick Chung, Josh Gordon, that's going to be a different looking team. So it's still early, too premature to call for the demise of the New England Patriots. They still got Bill Belichick. They still got Tom Brady. Now, if they still look like that in week 7, 8 with the new additions, with the new guys and new pieces, okay, then you can start to call like other national media week after week and say, okay, the Patriots are done. But I do think that the Lions definitely took advantage of the opportunity to play New England in September, handle their business, and I do think that, at least for the time being, it was nice to talk about the Lions in glowing terms. It was nice to get voicemails in a positive way without all the cussing, talking about expecting 80% of the people that voted on our poll at Detroit Podcast have predicted that the Lions are going to go win in Dallas, and that's good to see for now. But will we be surprised next week if we're coming here bitching and complaining again about the Lions being critical after a loss? I wouldn't be surprised at all. That's why we're taking it week by week, and that's why it's so fun to do this podcast. And thank you again for the voicemail, Spin Doctor. Great stuff.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Look, there is. I don't think the demise for the New England Patriots happened
too early.
on Sunday.
No, too early.
Yeah, not yet. Anyways, you need to see this for a couple weeks. It's just been. Look, New England went up against a very good defense in Jacksonville. Went up against a Detroit Lions team that seemed to put it all together and played almost a flawless game. Minus some silly penalties. I don't know how many blocks in the back I counted on that Sunday night game, but there were a ton. For the Lions, again, I think this team bought into what Matt Patricia was talking and what he was selling. I think this team now believes, and I think this team is starting to see what they can do and what they can be. It's just like you said, week by week.
Week by week.
Let's not get too high. Let's not get too low. And it sounds really cliche and it sounds really football, but that's what it is. Like, enjoy this victory. This was a big win. This was a huge win.
Let's definitely enjoy it. All right, first time out. We'll come back. Second half of the podcast, we're going to talk about college football, Michigan State, and we'll break down what I observed at Media Day, and as well as talking about some of the other news and notes surrounding the world of sports in general. Stay with us. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock here for our host site, Podomatic.com. Since September of 2013, we've recorded 1,000 or more podcasts, well over 1,000 podcasts, and thank goodness we use a great host site. Why do we use them? Well, when we record great audio, have great voicemails, have great guests, great sports debates, we take all that recorded audio and we upload it quickly to Podomatic so that all of our supporters in Michigan, across the United States, and even overseas can listen and enjoy the work here done at the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. So if you're going to look to start a brand new podcast, you want to reach the level of success as the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone. Definitely go and check out Podomatic.com. Right in the midst of college football, everybody's getting a chance to enjoy Michigan and Michigan State, and I think people are definitely now looking to evaluate them, Michigan and Michigan State, in a way now going forward based upon their last performances. Michigan destroyed Nebraska and it was a contest that really you could get a sense that Michigan really wanted to put a hurting on Nebraska based on comments of their head coach. And you had Michigan State go on the road and get the victory. You'll take the W any way you can get it, but I think a lot of people are looking at Michigan and Michigan State in different manners right now. My opinion is people are viewing Michigan in a really positive, glowing manner based upon how that offense and defense are looking, and people are looking really critically at Michigan State based upon some mistakes that have been made on the football field that continue. But at the very least, we're talking about teams that are winning, and that's a good sign going forward because right now we're inching ever so close to Michigan and Michigan State having to go up against bigger opponents. And I can't wait to see what Michigan State does versus Penn State. I can't wait to see what Michigan does versus Wisconsin. And right now we're seeing two clubs trying to get better, and it's a really good thing to see. For you, what's been your evaluation of Michigan as they progress now through the part of the season where they're playing lesser opponents?
Dylan McCaffrey is a G.
Yeah,
like
right.
For real. Do you realize his passer rating's 167.9?
Mop up king, right?
Holy cow.
The victory cigar.
The human victory scar. He looks legit, though. No, a couple things here, right? When we started the season and when we watched the Notre Dame game, the offensive line looked atrocious. It looked like it was all sorts of out of whack. You then fast forward a couple weeks, and now they're taking on Nebraska. And the offensive line looks like it has a little bit of a chip on its shoulder. Looks like it's playing together as a unit. It looks much, much better now than it did then, and I think that's going to continue. I'm really eager to see what's going to happen to this Michigan offensive line as the season progresses. The one game where where I will absolutely be able to learn more about this offensive line is the Wisconsin game. They're taking on Northwestern this week, and Northwestern, they're not a very good football team. Okay, let's call it what it is. I think this is a very underwhelming football team for Pat Fitzgerald. Normally, he puts out some of the best talent he can put out. I mean, this is a guy who usually recruits 2-3-star guys. Every now and then he'll get a 4-star guy, and he does the absolute best with it. Very similar to Mark D'Antonio. That's why I think when they play each other, those games are so hotly contested because they're basically cut from the same exact cloth. But Northwestern's not a very good team. I expect Michigan to beat Northwestern this week. It's going to be one of those weeks where I think the offensive line gets to kind of work on a few things, dial a few things up, and really see what they can do and how they can polish up a couple of things to head into that game against Wisconsin. The game against Wisconsin is looking bigger and bigger and bigger right now. And yeah, I know Wisconsin had suffered a huge loss to BYU. Wisconsin's not the team I think a lot of people thought they were heading into the season. All that being said, to that point, Northwestern will be the biggest game that Michigan has played because the game against Notre Dame, yeah, it was a big game. Yeah, it was huge, especially for the fan bases. It was massive, all right? But Big Ten play counts a little bit more. You're taking on a team who is probably going to win their side of the division and will probably be playing in Indiana. So this is going to be a massive game. Michigan needs to show up for that game. Look, don't take this week off. Work on some things this week. Do some things this week. I expect Michigan to win this week, and I want to see more Dylan McCaffrey time. I want more McCaffrey time. I think everybody wants more McCaffrey time. McCaffrey is the way to go right now. More McCaffrey. I want to see that passer rating like up near 200 if we can get it there. But you need to work on things this week so you can carry those over into next week.
And looking at Michigan State, a lot of people are critical of that offensive line. They're looking at Brian Lewerke missing throws. They're saying, wait a minute, there's some signs and wrinkles here of a team that's giving up a little bit too many plays on the defensive side, too many big plays. They're not gelling on the offensive line. But at the same time, you were able to go into Indiana, a game in which in the past you have lost, and you went in there and you were able to handle your business. I would say this. For Michigan State to improve, they definitely have to shore up that offensive line. Brian Lewerke has to play a lot better brand of football, but I do think it'll happen. It's a good sign when you don't play as well as people think you should, and you go out there and you earn the victory. And you're starting to see the emergence of a couple running backs that people are saying, oh, they can do some things. And remember that the Michigan State offensive line, you had asked a great question. You had said, how concerned are you regarding some of the loss of some key talent? was that going to be a concern? And my answer to that was, yeah, I do think it's going to be a situation which you got to pay attention to, but LJ Scott being a senior leader could help mitigate that, as well as the effectiveness of Brian Lewerke running the ball and scrambling and extending plays as well. And you saw that. You have an opportunity now with Brian Lewerke to get 5 or 6 yards if the offensive line can block correctly. But with Michigan State, you're starting to see the emergence of that next class of talent. And like I had said, next year will be the year where we can say, you better win 10 games. You better expect that Michigan State go to Indy. This year, you look at it and you go, okay, LJ Scott's dealing with a couple minor injuries, and Brian Lewerke is still trying to work through issues with that offensive line, because the offensive line, as well as the biggest weakness that Michigan State has, is Dave Warner. Everybody's pinpointing it and saying, look, there's a problem with the way that Michigan State schemes for these opponents, because they run the same I formation scramble, the same plays, the same kind of running plays in the red zone. And if that continues, if you're so predictable in the red zone and you keep kicking these field goals, when you go up against a Penn State or a Michigan, they're going to make you pay. And so you have to get better. And Mark D'Antonio was asked about Dave Warner, and he said, look, you know, obviously there are some plays that we call that we expect to do well and some plays that are mistakes. And Dave Warner has come out and admitted finally that he's made some mistakes in some of the play calls. But going forward, they can't be so predictable. They can't run the same set of plays in the red zone and expect the same results. And so for Michigan State, they have to open it up. And I do believe that that Michigan game could be the culmination of both teams really showing what they got and could make for an epic contest. But getting there along the way, I'm a little bit concerned that some of the old traits in terms of predictability and the way that offense is called might cause Michigan State some problems with another loss on the way to the road to Michigan.
I want to double back to that Michigan game in 1 second, but do you see any point either in the season or at the end of the season where D'Antonio makes a change with the offensive coordinator and dumps Dave Warner?
Oh, man,
Dave Warner is that bad where even a guy like myself, right? I don't watch a ton of Michigan State football.
You see it.
Right, exactly. I watch a few games here and there every single year, generally a lot of games early before the Michigan game, and then usually if it's on late at night or it's like one of the featured games, I'll kind of peek in, but I'm usually watching the Michigan games. Even I know Dave Warner's a boob. So Mark D'Antonio has to know.
Everybody knows. The fans are looking at it. Everybody that's evaluating knows. But no, Mark D'Antonio.
Dude, when I go to Twitter and like there's a Michigan State game on and it's just Dave Warner.
Yeah.
Dave Warner's an idiot. What are we doing? Can we fire Dave Warner? Like those are the tweets that I'm seeing in my feed, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this guy's a moron.
Yeah.
You know, and like I'm watching the game and I'm just like, what the hell is he doing?
Dude, Shay Norling, the host of the Monday Mashup, was screaming and yelling.
Check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Great show every Monday on our network. He came out and said that, look, if I keep seeing another rollout from the I formation, why not spread it out a little bit? Why not, go out there and have some sets where arguably, you see it, you have 4 wide receivers that can catch the ball and extend plays, and you never run a spread option offense. You never really have the opportunity to go 5 wide. You never really have the opportunity to run a more advanced offense. No,
Dude,
it's antiquated.
We were talking about it on Sunday, you and I, through text message. And I said to you that Felton Davis is probably your most elite talent that you have on offense. On top of that, you've got a guy like Hayward who looks like he could be an exceptional player. So why not get the ball into the playmaker's hands any way possible? Spread them out. Do some end arounds. Get creative with it. It's offense. Offense is supposed to be fun. Offense should not be like pulling teeth.
Right?
Offense should be a good time. But I want to go back to something else that we talked about in our text messages. You sent me a message and you said the MSU U of M game could be 48-41. Explain.
Okay, because of the fact that at this point in time, you're starting to see the emergence of the talent, like you said, at Michigan State in terms of their offense. Both teams, I think, are going to play their best, and I do think that they could open it up with some deep plays. Now you got Shea Patterson, who has the ability now to connect with Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's got the opportunity now with Karan Higdon. I do think that with the ability of Michigan and Michigan State to score points and the deficiencies, I do think that if it's a game where Michigan State tries to pound the ball and tries to involve some of these great wide receivers, and then Michigan at the same time trying to evolve and throw the ball deep, I think we can get a high-scoring game because both teams, obviously Michigan's defense is a little bit better and they're performing better than Michigan State's, but with Lewerke that's an opportunity there to extend plays. And if Michigan State can rediscover the tight end and use them a little bit more efficiently, then I think this game could be out of hand. It could be a very fun game. Or, and I think I said at the same time, or it could be like a 9-6 game where it's grinded out, where they just run first and second down, and it's really a defensive battle. But I'm starting to think that game, Michigan State, October 20th, could be an offensive slugfest if they both kind of reveal what we want to see.
It'll be interesting because
you don't probably see it that high scoring.
I don't. But Michigan State's offensive line, we've talked about it for basically since the season started here. Their offensive line, not very good. They struggle with bigger, more athletic and physical teams. In Michigan, the strength of their defense is that front seven. That front seven is their strength. Their secondary is probably the weakness on that team, defensively speaking. So if guys like Felton Davis can get downfield and that wide receiving core could make it a long game as long as Lewerke has some time. The issue is buying Lewerke enough time to where those receivers can get downfield. I don't know if Michigan State's offensive line can hold up to the pressure that Michigan's going to bring. You got to remember, Brown likes to blitz.
Yeah.
Don Brown blitzes a lot. And the one thing Michigan State has struggled with is picking up the blitz and keeping guys off their quarterback. Yeah, you mentioned it. Lewerke can run. He can scramble out of the pocket. He can buy himself some time. But at what point does 8-9 guys just collapsing all around you, there's nowhere you can go. You know what I'm saying? All you're going to do is eat turf. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I think Michigan State defensively, I don't know how big of an issue they're going to pose for Michigan. The way Michigan's offense is seeming to work right now, they try to establish the run early, and then they let Shea kind of throw a little bit late. Again, Michigan State's defensive line at times looks soft like warm butter. And if Michigan's offensive line can hold up and gets better, I think they can push around Michigan State's defensive line. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's still weeks before this game even takes place. But if Michigan can establish the run early, I think that then sets up the pass, and we'll see what happens. Right now, if you're asking me, I was talking to a guy at work the other day, and he's like, Michigan State's going to blow Michigan out. Michigan State's going to blow Michigan out. I'm like, what are you watching? Like, what games are you watching? Are these not the same games I'm watching? I was like, what do you think the biggest issues Michigan State's having right now? And he's like, well, just not good play calling. And I was like, you're dumb. Like, we're done talking because their biggest issue is on their defensive and offensive lines. That's where the big issue is right now. That's where they tend to struggle right now. Yeah, the play calling is bad. We both agree, right? But I think we both agree that the line play has not been very good for Michigan State. And I was like, look, Lewerke's going to have his hands full because that defensive front is going to come and they're going to put a ton of pressure on him. So he was like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I was like, all right, bro. Whatever.
How excited are you for this weekend's slate of games? Ohio State, Penn State, probably a game that everyone's going to look to say, okay, the winner of that game is going to have the edge in terms of getting to Indy. I'm excited.
I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a really good game. What blows my mind is, so ESPN put something out there where whoever wins this game is representing the Big Ten East. They're going to the playoff. They're going to Indy and they're going to the playoff. Like, hands down, that's what's going on. And I was like, man, that's really ballsy of ESPN to say something like that. You know, I mean, you got to put your pick out there, and you think one of these two teams will do it. And yeah, I agree. I think Ohio State, hands down, is the best team in all of the Big Ten right now. Penn State, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what Penn State is right now. I really don't. I mean, this is a team that almost lost to Appalachian State earlier in the season, you know? So I don't know what they are. I don't believe in Trace McSorley. I think he's an okay quarterback, but I don't believe in him at all. So I'm not sure. I think Ohio State wins this game. I think they're going to be the team that has to get knocked off. Either Michigan or Michigan State is going to have to knock these guys off for a chance to go and play in Indianapolis. But, yeah, man, it's a really good slate of games. Look, I always liked seeing the Fighting Fitzgeralds. So when Michigan takes on Northwestern, I'll definitely be tuned in watching that. Look, Penn State, Ohio State, that's going to be a great game. Who's Michigan State got on the docket this week? I didn't pay any attention to what Michigan State. So they're playing CMU. Never mind.
Yeah, CMU.
Yeah. Don't lose that game. Okay, how about that? How about you guys don't lose that? Can you try to avoid losing that game? Can I tell you something about CMU? They're garbage. Yeah, they're absolutely garbage. For Big Drew and Jim show, check that out on DFN every single Monday.
AM 11:30.
That's
yes,
right. 3 to 6. Check it out. So Jim's a Chippewa. he lets everybody know it too. They're freaking bad. Like I have to do these picks with them, and I'm really bad at the picks. But somehow Central games always get worked into the picks.
Yeah.
And it's because Jim went there. So we've got to pick these stupid games with the Chippewas. They are freaking horrible, bro.
No
they
doubt
are
about it.
absolutely awful. Like football, like they're still trying to conceptualize what it is over there. Like for real, you guys need to work them. Grind them into the ground. They are bad.
One final segment ahead. Stay tuned. In the last segment of the podcast, some news kind of being made regarding the Red Wings, the Pistons, nationally. So we're going to definitely tackle some of the big stuff going on in the world of sports, and I can't wait to get Adam's thoughts. Stay with us. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Thanks, everybody, for your continued support. We wouldn't be able to keep the lights on, the microphones hot here in our Sterling Heights studio without your great support. The free and easy way to go support us is check out our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Every single week, we're running the Top Cat Sales High School Coach of the Week. And already this week, we got 5,000 votes or more. Check it out. Thanks, everybody, for going and visiting our website, finding us. Each and every week, we check the stats. Adam and I are definitely stats geeks. We see the increased downloads. We see the increased subscribers to our podcast, and it makes it really fun each and every week to have people invite us on their shows, and to be able to broadcast every single week has been an amazing opportunity, and it's really thanks to your supports as well. So thank you again. Free and easy way to support us, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. All right, cuz, lots to get to here in the final couple minutes of the podcast. Ken Kal, voice of the Detroit Red Wings, he put out a tweet, and it's really interesting because it kind of speaks to where the fans are at with the Red Wings. And he put out a tweet. I want to read this to you and tell me quickly your thoughts about it, because I think maybe some of the fans of the Red Wings are a little bit negative on it. But he comes out and he says on his Twitter page, at KenCalDRW, he says, "It surprises me how some fans are so negative about the Wings. These kids are exciting to watch. The vets have pep in their step. There will be bumps along the way, but they really are heading in the right direction. Don't be negative, just enjoy the ride." And so far in the preseason, the Wings are scoring. They're undefeated. They're playing a pretty good brand of hockey, but a lot of fans, especially when you see the attendance so far in the preseason, not that great. And many people, obviously in terms of covering the Red Wings and seeing what they're about, kind of, you would say they're, in terms of paying attention and the heat that they have, a little bit lukewarm in terms of the fans and people's expectations of the Wings. What do you think of his tweet?
I think he's spot on. Look, there are going to be bumps along the road. They're young kids. The one thing you can say is they are scoring goals. Scoring
nice.
A lot of goals. It looks like it's going to be an entertaining brand of hockey. I think with Zetterberg being forced to retire, it opens up a whole new world for this team. There isn't the expectation that there used to be. Everybody now understands where we're at. There is no need to sit there and get to the playoffs. That all died. Now it's just go out there, let the kids have fun. Throw the pucks on the ice, and let's just go. And you're getting contributions from guys that you know. You're getting contributions from Manthas. You're getting contributions from Athanasius, from Larkins. You're getting contributions from even from guys like Helm, older veteran guys. You're getting these contributions. On top of that, you're getting contributions from some of the young guys that you wanted to see, that you've been pining to see for years now, and now you're starting to get it. So just sit back, enjoy the ride. This is going to be a fun team. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but I will tell you this much.
More fun.
Yes. This team, exactly. That's where I was going. This team will be 10 times more fun to watch than last year's team.
And to respond to Ken's tweet, I think right now the fans of Detroit, because of all the teams and a lot of the organizations, their expectation is just now to rebuild and get to the postseason. The attitude of the fans is just show me. We don't have no expectations. We can't come out here because we know that there's a little bit of PR going on here trying to sell the likes of Larkin, Mantha, Zadina, Chalowski, Rasmussen. They're trying to sell, hey, come on out, watch us. But right now the fans' expectations is valid. Look, go out there and show me. Show me that you're not going to be the same team that gives up soft goals, doesn't play well in their zone, and doesn't do well on the power play and gives up a bunch of power play and special teams goals. Go out there and play well and earn some points, and then you'll get some people to watch you. And that's for every organization, the Pistons, Wings, Lions, and Tigers. No expectations. Go out there and show me, because all of them probably, you would say, Every organization in Detroit sports is going through a rebuild. Every single one of them. And at this point in time, the fans aren't patient because we haven't had success at the pro level in a long time. So I think it's a fair reaction. But at the same time, I think people are watching from afar because it ain't cheap to go down to Little Caesars Arena. And for me personally, I don't like this whole ticket idea of you can't have a ticket in your hand. You have to have an e-ticket. And I think for me, I'm one of the old timers. I'm like, look, just if I want a ticket, I want to be able to hold it in my hand, say it's mine, have it scanned, and walk in. Now you're saying I can't have that, and I think some people early on are not going to go because of it. So, look, put a good product on the ice, people will come. That's just the way to win. Put some points on the board.
That's it right there.
Now I had the opportunity to go to Pistons Media Day.
I want to know what the atmosphere is like.
Yeah.
Like, what is the feeling in the air with,
it's like
with
all
Casey
love
there?
Yeah, the atmosphere is it's a little bit like hope springs eternal, kind of like one of those things where everybody's positive, everybody's coming in good shape, they look good in their jerseys. People were trying to poke and prod a little bit and basically say that in the end, the roster is kind of made up of guys that don't fit the goals of the organization. It's like, okay, we want to shoot a bunch of threes, and we're going to use a bunch of advanced analytics to figure out ways to execute that, whether it be having Ellenson, Stanley Johnson, Andre Drummond shooting threes, Blake Griffin. But at the same time, you have a team that's strong in the front court, whereas the entire NBA teams that are strong are great in the back court. So it was, like I said, a bunch of hype. But Dwayne Casey speaks the part. He seems like a very professional man. And he said, look, I want to try to get our rankings really high in terms of defense and offense. But the big thing that I walked away was, Andre hinted at it that they didn't feel like the use of the players that they had was proper. And he kind of made it a notion that, look, Henry Ellenson probably can emerge. Stanley can emerge under a guy like Dwayne Casey as opposed to Stan Van Gundy. And so he didn't come out and say, look, I have love for Stan Van, but he didn't think that some of the players were utilized in the best way. And I think that the offense, in terms of what's going to happen with the Pistons, should be a little bit more up and down. They want to shoot less contested two-pointers. They want to be up and down, get the ball inside to Andre Drummond, which will, in fact, if you do run and gun, should open up the three a little bit more when you're trying to force the opponent into transition. And the thing is, though, and the takeaway I have is, and I think the takeaway everybody in the media had was, okay, sure, you're going to try and shoot a bunch more threes, but nobody believes they're going to make them. It's hard.
Make them. What's the point?
So there's going to be a lot of, I think, early growing pains because they're going to stick with it. I think it's going to be early on, similar probably to the Lions in that the first handful of games, and I hope they get out the kinks in the preseason, are going to look awful. And you might not even score 70. But as the season progresses, I think Dwayne Casey and the way that he relates to the players is going to get the most out of these young cats. And it's a show-me year for Stanley Johnson in a year where he's got to earn a new contract. Henry Ellenson has to emerge, and then you got Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson, and Blake Griffin. They have to be on the court. And the big thing is this. If they can find, however, any way for all three to stay on the court for 70 games, that should be a playoff team. They can do some things with the emergence of Bullock and other guys as well. They should make the playoffs. But the question is, I got Blake Griffin being injured for 25 games. I think that, look, it happened last year. The guy's injury prone. It's just the way it is. He's injury prone. So is Reggie Jackson.
I want to draw a correlation between sports here. So now in football, most of the time when Andy Reid coaches a quarterback, you look at what Alex Smith did last year. He had arguably his best season of his career last season. And now you look at this season with Patrick Mahomes, who is lighting the NFL up. He looks like a god out there. Do you think Dwayne Casey is going to be able to do something similar where he takes what you do really, really well and then accentuates it and makes it better? So with Andre Drummond's very good at rebounding. He plays okay defense. He's decent around the basket. Like, he wants Andre to shoot threes now, which doesn't make sense to me.
I think he's only going to shoot one or two more. He has a green light to, but I think he's not going to.
Do you see Dwayne Casey putting these guys, though, in a position where he's going to accentuate what they do well to get the most out of this team?
Yeah, I do see that. Early on, I do see a message of defense and an offensive strategy that's going to be more in line with what the NBA is doing. Now, the thing is this, though. Look at what Patrick Mahomes does. He's got talent. The guy can throw the football all over the place. You don't start the year 13 touchdowns, no interceptions, unless you got talent. It's the right mix of having Andy Reid believe in you, having some great weapons. I mean, he has the likes of guys that are really awesome. I mean, top 5 tight ends, top 5 wide receivers, top 5 running backs. So it's a little bit different than the Pistons in that we're counting on guys that have known to kind of be middle of the road guys. In my opinion, what really should happen is, they should broom everybody out and start over, because I think they're an organization that is trying to sell that a new coach can bring us a championship, when reality is they should start a complete rebuild. Get rid of Reggie Jackson, get rid of Andre Drummond, get rid of Blake Griffin, and figure out a way to start all over and build through the draft, because they're, I would say, leaps and bounds behind the top-end teams in the East. Look at what Boston's doing. They made the Eastern Conference Finals, and they got another guy back. Yeah. Look at the 76ers. The process is now working for them.
They actually got 2 guys back.
Yeah.
Because Kyrie wasn't there for most of the playoffs.
Exactly. So in terms of what you're looking for, the goal is what? Be a 4 seed and get eliminated in the first or second round? That's the ceiling. And I think that everybody in town kind of realizes we want the ceiling to be, look, I want to compete with the likes of Boston year in, year out. And they're not the next team. The next wave of teams is going to be in the West, and then Boston and the 76ers. It would be great. I mean, if you could have timed it perfectly, you have LeBron leave this year. But unfortunately, what really sucks is that ownership made a long-term commitment to a guy in Blake Griffin, and unfortunately, you change regimes. So it's unfortunate that had they decided on a rebuild 3 years ago, you now can be earning first-round picks and having guys contribute, maybe being the next team after the Celtics and the 76ers. But you're not there. You're a 4 through 6 seed at best, but the hope is that you can have the guys on the team perform at a level that outpaces what they're used to. And so if they do, like I said, I'd be surprised if the Pistons are a 4 seed and have a home playoff series.
What do you make of there's been talk in some of the Pistons front office executives have said that they're interested in trading for a guy like Jimmy Butler. What do you think about that? And they have no problem if he leaves after 1 year.
Yeah. Here's the problem with that is that Jimmy Butler has a say, and he is obviously limiting his teams to the big markets. He wants to be in New York or in LA, and they're like the Pistons. Unfortunately, what they're putting out there is that they covet Blake Griffin. They feel like Blake Griffin, if he evolves, can earn that contract, and they really believe that he's a selling point, that this is a guy that's going to put asses in the seats, and this is what they're selling. Do they really believe it? I don't know, but that's what they're putting out to the public, is that they covet Blake Griffin, and they believe that the combination of him and Andre Drummond can help them do something different in the Eastern Conference. I'm shocked by it, because I'm like, you covet a guy that's injured 20 games a year, that doesn't play 60 games every single year, that a team like the Clippers decided to let go of. I don't know about that. It's just he's got to go out there and show me. He's just got to go out there and do some things. But no, for the Pistons, I think they need to commit to a rebuild and believe actually that they're not a good enough team. But they do. But they don't.
They think they're a good enough
team.
They
think they're a good enough team. They think that they can elevate their players with a new coach, and it's not going to happen. I think that Dwayne Casey, maybe for a year or two, will have a good honeymoon period, but I don't see him being all that successful.
Tell me a little bit more about this rumor. When we were coming in and we were doing a little bit of show prep before we sat down to record, you had mentioned something to me about Dan Gilbert buying a local team.
Very weird situation in that just a week ago, Chris Ilitch came out and spoke to the media and said, I'm committed to owning the Detroit Tigers. I'm committed to this rebuild. Now a report comes out on Wednesday and it says, hey, wait a minute, Dan Gilbert might be putting together an offer to buy the Detroit Tigers. And so I look at that rumor and I say, okay, what is likely happening? Well, what's going to happen is that Chris Ilitch right now, probably at the time he spoke, said, look, I'm interested in the team, but if Dan Gilbert shows up with a $2.7 billion offer, maybe a little bit more than what the Ilitches are considering, there's a good chance he could do it. Money talks, obviously, they're going to have conversations. Do I see it happening? I think there's a strong enough chance that if the Ilitches want to just focus in on the Red Wings and other type of entities, that if the money's right, and in any situation when a deal is made, how the money shakes out, if an offer is made and Dan Gilbert has the funds and resources to try and do it, I hear he's trying to sell off his assets in the casino, I think there's an opportunity more than 50% to believe it could happen. But I find it interesting that Chris Ilitch really has made an emphasis through the media to try to put a rest to the rumor that he's selling the team, because maybe you go out there and you want free agents to believe that the organization's stable, and you want the price to maybe stay high. You want everybody to believe in what you're doing. But I obviously believe that Dan Gilbert's not going to show up to the table with like a spit gun thing. He's going to show up with some duffel bags full of cash,
right,
and he'll make a deal that might have to be taken seriously.
Now, when you had mentioned this to me, I was a little bit taken back because of the comments that Chris Ilitch had made basically last week.
Right.
But it doesn't surprise me. Let me tell you why it doesn't necessarily surprise me. If you look at what has happened with this Detroit Tigers team since Chris Ilitch has taken over, what has he done? He's gotten rid of a lot of the high-priced assets on the team. Guys like Justin Verlander, You got Victor Martinez's contract coming off. The only guy that is still here who gets paid a buttload of money is Miguel Cabrera. And I think if he had the chance and he had the option to be able to trade his breaking down ass, I think Chris Ilitch would trade him. And the reason why he unloads all of these high-priced assets is because what that does is it drives the value of the team up. And let me explain this to you. When I say it drives the value of the team up, yeah, the product on the field's not very good. And you as a fan, you're very upset because you see a team that's going to that loses almost 100 games in a season, right? And I get that. But you don't have that capital counting against your books. So you don't have a Justin Verlander contract counting against you. You don't have a Victor Martinez contract counting against you. You only have a Miguel Cabrera contract counting against you. So in your assets and liabilities, yeah, Miguel Cabrera is an asset, but he's also a liability because he cost you a fortune when you have to sit there and look at the payroll of this team. You start cutting the payroll on this team and you limit your general manager from going out and hiring high-priced free agents, because what it does is it drives your bottom line up through the roof. Now you factor in that you've got a minor league system because you're able to trade off a guy like Justin Verlander. You have a minor league system that is no longer a basement dweller. It's no longer hanging out in the cellar. It's now somewhere in the middle to maybe right around 10 in all of Major League Baseball. That says a lot of good things. So now when you go to the table to sell your team, or if you're looking to sell your team, you say, hey, look, our minor league system is here, and it's up and coming. We have no bloated contracts but Miguel Cabrera, and he's a superstar, so you can do what you will with that. You can build around him if you wish. You shouldn't, because he's falling apart. And if you look at, here's our bottom line. This is what we're bringing in right now. And as I say that, I'm sliding imaginary paper across the table. And at that point, a guy like Dan Gilbert, or in my hopes, it'd be a guy like Mark Cuban, because I think Mark Cuban's a great owner. Yeah, I know his office is full of sexual harassment, but whatever, bro. He's an awesome owner, if you ask me. He then looks at that paper, and he's like, oh, okay, cool. So you're worth this much money. Okay, cool. Here's a check. And that's how the deal's done. I basically just explained to you business.
Exactly. Very good explanation. One last thing. James Harrison came out and kind of made some noise on Wednesday when he offered up advice to Le'Veon Bell, and I tweeted back to ESPN. I said, so 2018. His advice, what would James Harrison say to Le'Veon Bell? What do you say? Report, be a trooper, work hard, try your best to honor your obligations contractually. No, James Harrison's advice, I'd give you everything at practice, but come Saturday, something ain't right. I can't play on Sunday because if I go out there and I mess something up, I'm losing a lot of money. So James Harrison's advice to Le'Veon Bell, fake an injury. That's his advice to him. So everybody that doesn't know, Le'Veon Bell's holding out. He does not want to continue to take the franchise tag. He feels like he's way undervalued. He's seen the deals that the likes of Todd Gurley and the big-time running backs have made, and he's like, whoa, I'm a guy that's way underpaid. I've been on the franchise tag now for several seasons. It's not right. And so his compadres, his contemporaries are saying fake an injury. What do you think about the Le'Veon Bell situation, and what's going to happen? Is he going to be traded?
I think I don't know. I want to say yes. But it's interesting that Harrison says this and brings this up because...
He's right, though.
Well, no, he is, because this is the same exact thing that Jerome Bettis did. Jerome Bettis talked about it. He sat there and he was afraid he was going to get cut and he was going to lose his contract. What'd he do? He faked an injury. He faked an injury for like 6 weeks, and then what happened? He came back. The team needed him as a running back.
Yeah.
He came back healthy. And next thing you know, he's got a starting job, and he's helping that team make it to the playoffs.
Whew, I just feel like in a game like football,
shitty. It's super shitty.
I just feel like talking about it openly. Maybe you try that, but it is bad when a guy like Le'Veon Bell, who's grinded and really produced, can't get the best deal possible. But I think it's going to be a marriage that ends poorly. Last thing. Should the Lions make a call? Le'Veon Bell?
No.
Renewed offensive line?
They don't have the money, man. They don't have the cash to do it.
Man.
I mean, look.
In a world where a fan can sit and openly talk, could you imagine a team with Khalil Mack and Le'Veon Bell? You address the best defender and one of the best. That's what I say. All in, push all in. But they can't do it. They don't got the money, huh?
Yeah, they don't have the cash. Like, here's the thing, right? So you have to realize he's making $14.5 million. He set out how many games so far?
Yeah, he wants like what, 7?
Yeah, he wants like 17, 18.
Wow.
But he's like, so
first 3 games, they're 1-1-1.
This is the deal, right? At this point, his prorated contract would be roughly close to $12 million. As a team, they only have $7.5 million in cap space. So you don't have the money right now to bring him in. What would end up having to happen Because you'd have to, so $14 million, he'd have to almost miss 7 or 8 games. After the 7 or 8 game mark, they could then trade for him and bring him in. The thing is, if they wanted to sign him to a long-term deal, that's possible because Ziggy Ansah's contract comes off the book next year. And right now, Ziggy's making like $17 million. So all that money that you're paying Ziggy, you can give right to Le'Veon Bell if you wanted to.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the latest edition of the podcast. If you've heard anything you disagree with or really agree with, feel free, leave a voicemail, 248-579-8686, or message Adam or I on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ, or the network at Detroit Podcast. Definitely tune in to Adam's radio show, the WDFN Tailgate, every single Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Great guests, great insights, and one guy that actually knows how to make a prediction.
Yeah, not me.
It ain't Adam.
It ain't me. Hey, real quick before we leave, funny story. My dad called me the other day, and I don't know if you listened or not. I wanted to amp up the stakes for the pick segment, right? So I proposed that the loser for Week 17 has to come in and do the entire show in their underwear. And Ryan's kind of hemming and hawing about this. And Ryan's got like a 5-game lead on me right now because I'm absolutely horrible at the picks. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. Anyways, my old man calls me yesterday, and he was like, so it seems like you're going to be doing your radio show naked. And I was like, what? He was like, you couldn't pick your own nose. He's like, what the hell's your problem? What are you doing? So my dad's giving me grief. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks again. You can find us anywhere you can find podcasts. We'll see everybody next week. Every Thursday, you know you're going to be listening to Doc and Jock.
Go Lions.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.